Hello, hope everyone's good. Thanks for checking this video out. Just gonna share about like what's going on for me and these. I'm meeting hundreds of people online, having these really powerful discussions, and just, just so validating. So much verification that's occurring, right? Like being able to learn from people who came approached learning about energy from a completely different way, coming to the same, very similar um, but with unique alternative ways of explaining or sharing, or just powerful rich stories on how they got to where they got. And it's just it's just such an incredible time. I'm so thankful all of this is happening. It brought so many people out of the woodwork, including myself. I was in the privacy of my own recapitulation, and I wasn't going to share until I had recapitulated my whole life, and then I was going to write my book and, you know, all that. But I'm glad that I didn't wait, and that we're starting to talk with all these people. It's a huge energetic boost. You can get the same energetic boost from going to like well, there's lots of ways in which one can access boosts of this nature. I lived in a community with a powerful shaman, a medicine man who taught us, ceremonies and rituals, and put us up on the hill for vision quests. And you get huge boosts of energy from, things of that nature. But he was utilizing his ancestors to give us that boost too. So it isn't it's a strange thing to look back and realize and come to terms with how power works. um, but we had what were called study sessions, and he would teach us what he called the true history of the earth, right? It was fascinating, really, really rare information that's really hard to comprehend. Um, Honestly, it was going over most of our heads. And he would say, someday you're going to wish you had the capacity to really understand what I'm telling you. You're going to have all kinds of questions for me. But by that time, I might very well be gone. And that's proven to be very true. But the reality is I don't seek knowledge outside of my own experience anymore, because this is a world of trickery and deception and inversion on so many levels. Not just not just the veil, but like the way in which the veil is being replaced, um, and the way in which a shaman helps you take your veil down, but then produces a new one for you, and that's based on the benefiting them. It's hard to find people that are truly fearless, in that they're not trying to manipulate you or utilize you. Because if somebody has issues around security or power, then they're going to end up utilizing fear tactics to keep you there. Or you just, it exposes, it's easy to see. And it really sucks, because when you're learning from someone really powerful, you don't want that to be true. But like I've said before, nobody's fully conscious. So if you can approach and learn from people knowing that they are out of balance, just like you, and you don't project or expect them to be something that they are not, then you can learn from them. But if you are expecting them to be something more than they are, but the problem is when they lie, right? And then you realize, oh, you're dealing with somebody who's gotten lost. Because if you're lying to yourself or lying to others, then you're lost. You've been you an aspect of your being is lost, at least. but doesn't take away from the knowledge that I gained, and my gratitude for all of the people that taught me these powerful things. Um, all the experience itself is what's so rich, and each person's life is so rich and so rare. And the people I've worked with have been so rare, rare beyond rare, larger than life. Um, so yeah, the benefit of like large amounts of people discussing and focusing on one thing is that you're creating what's called human mass. Um, so that's what shamans are really interested in, is getting enough people to execute the same movements at the same exact time to reach a state of trance together. It's like this wind will show up and move that reality of that entire group. And you'll be ushered into just a different layer. This is very easy to do, but not something, well, it's easy to do with a large enough amount of people. That's the trick. But there's a benefit to learning how to utilize that same energy without having to borrow from others too. So I know a man that spent 18 years in solitude in order to hone his dreaming attention. And he's dripping with affection. He saved all of his sexual energy and utilized it to heal himself. I mean, that's what this is. That doesn't mean you shouldn't learn about your sexual power in the physical way. It just means there come a point where you learn how to use it in a particular way, and you'll end up getting over. You become more interested in what its use is in dreaming than what its use is for you to feel pleasure or to procreate or to connect or bond, or dreaming becomes that much more. It just becomes a priority. Now, with a partner, you can both utilize dreaming and sexual energy at the same time. So the doors open, and it's more than you could ask for when it all comes together. But that can be overwhelming to have something that powerful happen. It's like, because that's not always going to be the case, right? So being able to accept these extreme highs without then expecting them to return, or that's how life's going to be now, right? So you just keep accepting and accepting and accepting things for how they are, rather than wanting them to be like they were, or hoping that they'd be different. Accepting the unacceptable, embracing the unknown, pursuing your longing will lead to what is in the way, which is the shadow, which is the wound. So yeah, it gets really simple, and we all have a good amount of shadow work to contend with. It's a lot of people doing a lot of psychedelics, and then rather than do the integration work, they're afraid of that and are continuing to push it with psychedelics so that they can get moments of lucidity and get beyond the discomfort that the integration work is presenting. And obviously that's just going to make things really, really challenging at some point. But I understand how this happens. It's going to get intense like that. People are going to need a lot of help in the future. On so many levels. And so the timeline we're in still has a future with a lot of mental wards and a lot of military recruitment centers. It doesn't mean that you won't have a beautiful and dope life, and that doesn't mean that timeline is guaranteed. We could we can and will, at some point, this whole dystopian agenda backfires. The people that are running this get exposed. All that happens, but it doesn't mean that we'll suddenly be living in a utopia. It's going to be challenging on so many levels for a long time just to heal from what happened, and there'll be so much that continues to present itself. So we're in a strange time. There's a lot of death that's coming, according to shamans. It's like a beginning. We're in a beginning, right? So there are many beginnings, and there is no original beginning, because it's the wheel of time. It's not the line of time. It's a wheel, and it's moving, and if you can get next to it and feel it moving, then you will accept things rather than resist them. And it's tricky to do, right? It's a beautiful thing to have happen. It's very humbling to realize, that you don't matter, that all of this goes on with or without you. But that's, of course it would. Like, why would you be a critical piece in the puzzle, right? And yet, every effort you make to return, to reconnect, to reclaim, to recapitulate, to remember, it benefits the whole so much that your contribution is just felt exponentially and seen and witnessed. And you're able to gain great peace from that. Having purpose. We all have purpose. But some of us have struggled to discover it. I still struggle tremendously, right? Like, what's being expected of me is a lot more than I'm doing, right? So people are like, what the fuck, Joel? Like, you should have, like, so and I have had to, like, not let that interfere with my knowing and my seeing. But that doesn't mean that they're not right. I'm just in the process of my shadow discovery, trying to figure out all these different aspects of my shadow wound, and how it affects my procrastination, or what do you call that? Disassociation, avoidance, projecting. So I have things that I have to come to terms with in order to know myself. When one knows themselves, they're able to know the system that produced them. That which bestows awareness consumes that awareness at death. Doesn't mean it consumes your soul or your spirit, but your awareness. And so, cultivating awareness. What is the point of cultivating your awareness if it's just going back to that which lent it to you? What the fuck is that about? So shamans have discovered that there's an alternative. If you recapitulate your entire life, that force will grant you passage, and you will be able to keep your awareness as a non-physical being and enter into what's called the third attention, or eternity, or infinity. And so you would think that we would all just recapitulate all the time, that that's what we would do. So the reality is it's the most difficult thing to do, because there is a force that knows that if we do that, that it won't be able to keep us in the position that it needs us to be in order for it to gain what it needs from us, which is to drink from us the luminosity that we produce, that is surrounding your body. It's a light, a ball of light, a torus field of light, and the outer sheen for the average person only goes up to about the heels. The ball goes way down below the earth, the ball of light that surrounds your body. So you've got quite a bit of light down there, and it comes up to about your heels. But then the force that is keeping us in place is able to utilize the light from the heels all the way up, so that it's just basically nibbling off the bottom all the time. And that's why you aren't gaining energy. Naturally, you would just, boom, every day would be just like, but we're here in a situation in which there's an energetic, predatorial thing. It's not negative. It's just, if you too were to discover this incredible source of food that tasted better than anything you've ever tasted, and it gave you everything you've ever needed, you too would consume this. As you do when you drink orange juice, get to that glucose. It's a miracle, or to just drink sunlight. That's all these forces that are nibbling on our energy are. They're drinking sunlight, just like you and I do. You may not know you drink sunlight, but we are all consuming sunlight, because we are sunlight. So we need it. So it is this force. It needs it. It's a predicament. It's not a negative thing. It's not something to be scared of. But the cool thing is, you don't have to let that force consume your particular luminosity. You can do the work so that your luminosity rises all the way up to the peak of the crown and seals you in. And then you can build your energy every day, because nothing's pulling you away from your heart path. So what I find is most shamans that are doing intense work are avoiding facing the things that would make them grow, and they're trying to run, and then so they're in this conflict, and so they're being fed off, even though they're trying to pretend that they're not. They're trying to uphold some image that isn't real. But these are extreme situations. These are people that don't believe in getting a job, or they're trying to do everything outside of the matrix, and it just takes a toll on you if you're being guided to go into the matrix and hone a different aspect of your being, but your ego is convinced that that's not something you can do. Then you end up conflicted, and your shamanic path becomes distorted, which leads to avoiding the integration, doing more and more psychedelics, and making the condition worse. That doesn't mean, though, that won't lead to incredible healing. It's just the way it typically goes. At some point, hopefully, each individual will be able to turn and face themselves and realize that they're running. We're all running. And we just want to turn around and walk toward, carefully, slowly, walk toward that which we're running from. Somehow we have to create the boundaries in our life that will make it possible for us to thrive. You can't save people. You can't save other people. You can be you can be impeccable with people, do everything in your power, but that doesn't mean that you hand over your power, right? So um, when you stop handing your power over to people, then you'll stop handing your power over to these unseen forces that get inside of your lives and create arguments and make you lose a ton of energy at one time. Recapitulation is such an intense purification process that it's been proven to be very challenging to remain purely raw food while recapitulating, because the detox mixed with the recapitulation has been too intense. So my recapitulation practice is more important to me than anything else. Food obviously makes dreaming that much more easy if I only eat raw, whole fruits and vegetables. But I had to transition back into some cooked food and some just heavier things in order to slow down the purification process. So that's a tricky dance. And yeah, so always listen to your body rather than your mind or somebody else telling you that you need to do things a certain way, because only you know. And so there's a lot to that. There's a lot of people that are really caught up in those concepts, and all I can say is shamans eat all kinds of things. It doesn't affect them from being able to do the things they do, but that's because they had teachers that helped them to learn really quickly. Where if you're trying to do it on your own, purification through with food is very helpful for becoming lucid. The less poison we have that we're interacting with, right? So like, I'm very sensitive to all of it, but I at the same point, I was getting too sensitive, so I don't know what to do about that. And I know that there's tricks, and I'm learning them as I go. I'm getting creative. The way in which perfumes are used in this world through detergents in like hotels, this stuff ends up being really challenging. The more sensitive, the more pure you get. Like I have to use a wash and dryer here in my apartment system that's not my own, and no matter how much I try, the remnants of the nasty, poisonous Tide laundry, whatever stuff they put in there, ends up being part of my reality. That some of my clothes smell with those perfumes, and it's just disgusting. It's poisoning us. When you walk by the streets and those huge laundromats and they're just blasting out this the steam and all the dry cleaning chemicals and all that stuff, they're just poisoning your environment and your being. And because most people don't know what it feels like to feel really good, so they don't realize that they feel bad. So they don't think, they're like, what are you talking about? I use all that stuff. And so it's only when you get sensitive that all of a sudden you're like, oh fuck, like how am I supposed to navigate this world when it's just so tricky like this? But so I'm trying to figure it out, and I look forward to further purification with food, and I plan on being raw food my whole life, but it's going to take me longer to get there than I had hoped. And again, shamans recapitulate, and therefore anything of the past actually never happened. So on an energetic level, anything they ever ate is now no longer true. And I know that sounds crazy, but if you're truly doing the recapitulation, then you are no longer a physical being, and then you've unlocked from the physical. Therefore, you did not eat any of the things that you think you did. To a point. The power of eating an animal is a power that you can utilize to achieve certain things. Um, Shamans utilize that energy for very powerful means. So it's just something that we can't judge or claim to understand. Um, from a scientific point of view, the last thing you ever want to put in your body is meat or dairy. It's especially cooked. So it's a tricky thing because shamans um, defy science in that respect, and energy is the reality, and science is just sort of an understanding of things as if we were all the same, but we're not, because sorcerers and humans are not the same. So it's just a perspective to come to terms with. I want to live as long as possible, and so I want to utilize the methodologies that those that have learned to live long lives use, right? People are saying you have to lift heavy weights, otherwise your bones will get weak, and it's all nonsense. Native Americans and Tai Chi masters and stuff were not, they weren't gym bros getting buff, right? Like, and it's embarrassing, to be a man in this world that isn't big, but it doesn't bother me because I don't need that validation. It's more embarrassing for like my wife, or like not that I think she, it's just like this whole thing. It's like you have to accept the fact that people are just assume you're lazy and whatnot. And size gets in the way of being a really dynamic dancer, snowboarder, martial artist. You can't sacrifice speed for being big. And so people that are getting big are missing out. They're gaining the benefit of being adored or feeling, their egos all. And it's an incredible thing to be able to lift large amounts of weights. But it's crazy. These same dudes, these, they're huge and whatnot. At work, they can't lift any more material or work a longer day, or, their backs go out just as much as mine, if not more. Like, the shit that happens is, they're not carrying 4 sheets of plywood, they're carrying 3 like me, and they're not carrying 4 2x12s, they're carrying 2. Like, these are heavy timbers, these are heavy boards, but it's there's leverage, there's ways to do it. So somebody that can beat you in arm wrestling doesn't mean they can beat you in a fight or can lift any more materials or do certain things. It's so the benefit of being like a Bruce Lee type person is that you can be like water. You can move in ways that somebody that's really large wouldn't be able to. But each of us are given a unique contract and a body type, where like if you're a blood type O, you're gonna gain muscle really easily, and if you're a negative AB like me, you work out all the time. It doesn't really change. You could eat tons of meat and protein and lift and push it hard, but unless you really intervene and like eat excessive amounts of food, you can't really transcend the blood type. And the AB negative is meant for like management, people that are really intellectual and they really can reach places of clarity and silence. And so my therapy isn't hitting the gym, it's doing martial arts, learning to move at high speeds, dancing for days. We go to concerts or festivals, we're just up for days dancing, and you don't even feel your body, right? Because you learn to access the energy side of it. So it's just snowboarding, surfing, these things have heart. Being a gym bro, you're basically looking at the mirror all day at yourself. It's really hard not for the ego not to kind of hijack your life, and you're putting a lot of stress on your system that will lead to likely lead to some issues. Shamans don't even need to exercise at all, which sounds crazy, but when you're when you've activated your lucid energy and your dreaming capacity, it's like you're an animal and you're getting this incredible amount of intense exercise every night when you're a powerful dreamer. Um, in order to withstand what the unknown is, which is the abyss and the ability to navigate um, the dark sea of awareness, one wants to prepare themselves mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, and in every possible way, because what you're going to encounter out there is a world in which you're no longer protected by your shields. If you want to become an active being, an aware one, you're going to have to learn all the things that all those that have figured out how to survive such encounters have learned. And so one of the main things shamans use is a tyrant, somebody that fucks with them. Or like Carlos Castaneda went and got a job as a fast order line cook, where he was the only cook in the kitchen. People are throwing things at him, or like yelling at him to get shit done. Some form of discovering where the holes are in your consciousness, discovering where your triggers are. This is very helpful. But again, it's just about being honest with yourself. Above all else, do not lie to yourself. Your childhood is filled with moments that created a blueprint for you. Those moments can be returned to, and those blueprints can be worked with. When we do this alone, when we have large group discussions where we're all impacted by the benefit of each other feeling the same feeling all at once, there's like a boost of energy you can get, and then you can utilize that boost to then go and sit with yourself and really feel into your past or into whatever surfaces. It may be just the present, but yeah, that's the intent of groups. They're not needed. Well, I mean, wolf packs are needed to survive, right? Wolves, and so you do have to learn how to work with people. But you could spend 18 years in solitude learning all this cool shit and avoid people for a long time. And so there's just different formulas. But self-care is self-love. And self-care does not mean denying yourself what you want. Self-care is really being honest and feeling your feelings and being able to forgive yourself and others and letting go and beginning to be even more honest than ever. It just, there's stages, right? So love yourself as much as you can, gratitude, even if it's not super strong, it changes everything. Whatever gratitude you can muster, it's your lifeline. Thank you.